Hey y'all, welcome to my YouTube channel where we learn together, take action together, and reflect together. My name is Tamira and thank you so much for being here. Y'all, today we are talking about the latest Memphis Shelby County Schools special called board meeting held to discuss the termination of Superintendent Dr. Marie Feagins' contract with the school board. This was not on my bingo card. I thought that we had a break at least until after the holidays from all things school board. They had their last meeting on December 3rd. Their next meeting wasn't scheduled until January, and then bam, December the 16th, we received notice that there will be a special called meeting, which was held yesterday, December 17th. And let me tell you, this was the worst school board meeting in the history of school board meetings. And I have seen my share of chaotic school board meetings. I remember the board meetings during the merger over a decade ago. Those were intense, emotional, and just really hostile at times. I remember the infamous superintendent search meeting when we learned about the top 5 finalists, and the board looked like deer in headlights. They were really clueless about, or acted clueless about, how those finalists were chosen. It was just a mess. And then there was a meeting a few months ago when Dr. Feagins faced the board's reprimand over her decisions about staff cuts and job restructuring. And I thought that was the peak chaos, but nothing could prepare me for what happened last night. And so this meeting, it has set a new standard for disaster in local politics. And I'm about to walk you through why this was one of the most chaotic, dysfunctional, and unforgettable school board meetings I have ever witnessed. If you want to hear my thoughts, then hop in the car and let's ride. Before we start, please sign up for my newsletter for updates about Memphis Shelby County Schools. I send updates directly to your inbox. The link will be in the description box. If you want the notes from the special called meeting about the superintendent's contract, if you sign up for this newsletter, you will confirm your subscription, and then the notes will be available for you to download. Again, the link to subscribe to my newsletter will be in the description box. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be in the know and tune in when I post new videos. Okay, so let's get into it. The meeting began with 57 public speakers signed up to share their thoughts and concerns and feelings about the potential termination of Dr. Feagins. Initially, the parliamentarian proposed limiting the public speaking period to 30 minutes, with each speaker allowed 1 minute. And the hope was that some speakers might not use their full minute, but the plan was clear. Once the 30 minutes were up, anyone who hadn't spoken would lose their chance. Commissioner McKizak, however, motioned to allow each speaker their full minute, effectively extending the public speaking time to 57 minutes. And Commissioner Porter seconded the motion, and it passed with a unanimous vote of 9 in favor. As a result, all 57 speakers had 1 minute each to speak. And out of all of the speakers, at least from what I can recall, not a single speaker spoke out against Dr. Feagins or in favor of terminating her contract. Instead, every person praised her leadership, expressed their support, and urged the board to dismiss the resolution to terminate her contract. Y'all, the public showed up in bold, passionate, and, to be honest, at times hostile ways. They were angry, they were indignant, and unfiltered in expressing their frustrations. Tensions were definitely sky high and could be cut with a knife. The meeting was filled with back and forth exchanges, moments when voices were drowned out, insults were thrown every way. And I'm chuckling because I was sometimes amused, but also like taken aback by some of the things that were being said to the commissioners from the audience members. And there were even threats to remove hecklers. While I don't believe it's my place to police people's outrage, especially in moments of turmoil and chaos that is sometimes warranted, I do understand the need for some level of order and structure in situations like this. That said, I am truly glad that the people showed up and spoke out because it definitely sent a message. It's energizing to see this level of engagement, and it signals that people are becoming more aware and involved. And I can only hope that this momentum continues. So after the public shared their comments, the chairwoman, Commissioner Coleman, read the resolution to terminate Superintendent Dr. Feagins' employment contract, and I posted it here on the screen. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I am going to break it down and make it as clear as possible for you to understand. And so here is what is happening. The Memphis Shelby County School Board hired Dr. Feagins as superintendent starting April 1st, 2024, under a contract signed on March 26, 2024. However, the board has discovered serious issues with her conduct that allegedly breaks the terms of her contract, including 1, false claims about overtime. It's been said that Dr. Feagins told the board and the public that the district paid employees $1 million in overtime for hours not worked, but never provided evidence to back this up or corrected the statement. The second claim is an unauthorized donation. Dr. Feagins allegedly accepted a donation of over $45,000 without the board's approval, which is against board policy. She also misled the board about her involvement with this donation, allegedly. And the third claim is mishandling federal funds. Dr. Feagins has been accused of falsely claiming that federal grant funds were still available when, according to the board, in fact, the money was not used by said deadline. The resolution also mentions ongoing problems with Dr. Feagins' communication and cooperation. She's been unresponsive to key partners and hasn't informed the board about important issues, which has hurt the district. Because of these issues, the board decided that her actions, especially her dishonesty, are too damaging for her to stay in her role. As a result, her contract is being recommended to be terminated effective immediately. So that is the resolution that outlines 3 claims against Dr. Feagins that the board believes to be grounds for termination. So let's get into the board's discussion about the resolution. I'm going to put their faces on the screen as we go along because it's crucial to understand their perspectives if they shared one. And for this issue, I'll be specific about what each board member said or didn't say. So here's why this matters. We need to know who these people are, where they stand, what they believe, and how they approach decisions. I've said this time and time again, but understanding their thought processes, their logic, their actions, and their behavior is essential because their decisions directly impact our daily lives, which is why I am glad that more people are paying attention now. The last I checked, at least 30,000 of you had viewed the board meeting via the district's website, and that's not counting other media outlets that live streamed the events. And so happy to see that more people are paying attention now. So I will walk you through each member's comments and contributions to the discussion, and then I am going to share my thoughts on it all for the second part of this video. So let's get into it. Commissioner McKizzak represents District Number 1, and she was one of the most vocal opponents of the resolution to terminate Superintendent Feagins. She strongly opposed the resolution, highlighting that she had only received it shortly before the meeting began and learned about the meeting itself just 3 minutes before the public announcement. Commissioner McKizak argued against rushing the vote and called for an independent third-party investigation to thoroughly address the allegations. She framed the issues raised in the resolution as part of the district's natural growing pains rather than just failures that are impossible to overcome. Her perspective on the need for time and collaboration between the board and superintendent reflected a measured approach going against the calls for immediate dismissal. Commissioner McKizak also highlighted her proactive communication with Dr. Feagins, openly sharing that she meets with the superintendent weekly to seek clarification on issues. She pointed out a broader issue of board preparedness, noting that some newer board members hadn't completed their training, and that doesn't take place until January. She also framed the meeting as an opportunity for open dialogue, urging her colleagues to air out their grievances, share what they know about Dr. Feagins' performance, and she also encouraged them to build stronger relationships with the superintendent, particularly those who don't meet with her regularly. Commissioner McKizak argued that the concerns outlined in the resolution didn't justify termination. She said that policies are adjusted all the time in the district, and she advocated for a more collaborative approach rather than a rushed dismissal. She also reminded the board of the time and effort invested in the superintendent's search, cautioning against making such a significant decision lightly. And finally, Commissioner McKizak emphasized that the superintendent had not been given a chance to respond and should be allowed to do so in writing. She stated that the resolution popped up without advance notice and blindsided the community and did. And she positioned herself as a voice of reason, advocating for a balanced and thoughtful approach to a highly contentious issue. Commissioner McKinney, she represents District Number 2, and she entered the conversation stating to the community members something along the lines of, I understand your concerns. I've been where you are as a community member, and now I have a different perspective from that of a board member. Commissioner McKinney also expressed concerns about the climate of fear and intimidation that is allegedly happening under Dr. Feagins' leadership, noting that it's having a significant impact on staff and morale across all district levels. Her comments highlighted the broader issues of trust and leadership. Aside from her concerns with Dr. Feagins, McKinney also expressed frustration with the community members' disruptions during the meeting. She addressed the audience directly, saying, I'm asking the elected officials in the audience to imagine if we came down to your place of business and acted the way you are. I believe she was talking to a county commissioner who was very vocal throughout the discussion. There were 2 county commissioners there, from what I remember. And so she was talking to one of them maybe, but some elected official in the audience from Commissioner McKinney's perspective being disruptive. Commissioner McKinney strongly opposed postponing the resolution, emphasizing the importance of addressing it immediately. And McKinney argued that the resolution was valid and pointed out that neither the contract nor board policy required an investigation. Commissioner McKinney cautioned against delaying the decision, warning that it could set a precedent, stating if that's what we want to do, then we need to change the policy, she said, advocating for continued deliberation on the resolution without delay. Although Commissioner McKinney did not explicitly state her support for terminating Superintendent Feagins, her stance throughout the discussion made it clear where she stood on the issue. When it comes to Commissioner Love's contributions during this meeting, I have little insight to offer. Why, you ask? Because Commissioner Love uttered only about 5 words, which were we need to call a vote. And that was it. She did not share her perspective, which is concerning to me. Typically, Commissioner Love is vocal during meetings, and in the past, she's expressed dissatisfaction with Dr. Feagins, even publicly calling her out during discussions. And her silence in this critical moment did stand out, and as Commissioner Garcia put it, the silence is deafening. I would have liked to hear more from Commissioner Love, particularly an explanation of her stance on the resolution. She is one of the more seasoned board members, and her perspective would have added depth to the discussion and helped the public better understand her reasoning. Even though she did not offer much commentary, her support for terminating the superintendent was made clear through her actions. Commissioner Porter made it clear that he opposed the resolution to terminate Superintendent Feagins, but he did not shy away from holding her accountable for areas needing improvement. He acknowledged Dr. Feagins' strengths, commending her for assembling a strong team and encouraging her to rely on them more effectively. He also pointed out concerns raised by principals in his district. While he opposed the resolution, he expressed a desire for progress and accountability, urging Dr. Feagins to address these challenges head on. He also directly asked, how much is this going to cost? Shifting the focus to the financial impact of terminating Dr. Feagins, and this prompted the General Counsel to provide a breakdown, revealing that termination without cause could cost the district up to $487,500, which is 18 months of her salary, and this payout could also include potential litigation fees. Commissioner Otey's comments focused on the culture and climate of the district, highlighting the struggles teachers and principals face in her area. Speaking on behalf of the educators who had reached out to her in desperation, she shared disturbing accounts of teachers crying themselves to sleep and even contemplating self-harm. Commissioner Otey pointed out specific issues affecting her district, including lack of support for new teachers, delays in program renewals and decision-making, such as dual enrollment approvals, misrepresentation of what's happening in schools, inequitable support for schools, dismantling of the third grade commitment team, unclear remediation plans for superintendent schools, and lack of consistency in student testing across the district. Commissioner Otey also openly acknowledged her struggles with communication and collaboration with Superintendent Feagins. She said that there had been unreturned emails and canceled meetings. She shared how she had repeatedly reached out to Dr. Feagins, asking to collaborate on various issues, including the strategic plan. She said, I've sent emails, asked to collaborate, and tried to do things together, but I never got a response. Commissioner Otey admitted that many people on the board, herself included, had hesitated to speak out. Some of us have been nervous about talking about this, she said, acknowledging the fear of retaliation or conflict is what had kept people silent. Still, Commissioner Otey was very determined to speak up in support of her teachers and principals, saying that she cannot let one more meeting go by without saying something. She hinted at unresolved issues within the district's leadership, stating there are many things going on behind the scenes that we don't want to blurt out. At one point, she shared an emotional moment, saying, my heart is racing and I'm getting messages from people right now in this moment. And one message that stood out is she said a teacher who had been contemplating taking their own life texted her saying, thank you for speaking up. Commissioner Otey urged the board to prioritize the culture and climate of the district's employees. It was clear that she favored terminating the superintendent's contract. Commissioner Williams took a community-centered approach, emphasizing the importance of listening to the public and ensuring the board acted with clarity and professionalism. He said that we must listen to the community, and he noted that the board lacked sufficient information to make an informed decision. Williams proposed postponing the vote to allow more time for a thorough understanding of the situation, warning that rushing such a significant action could undermine the board's credibility and the district's stability. In the middle of the tension and chaos of the meeting, Commissioner Williams called for calm and order. He was like, "This is out of control," and he urged his colleagues and the audience to maintain decorum. He also stressed the importance of fairness in the process, stating, "How can we move forward without hearing from her being Superintendent Feagins?" And he echoed the sentiment of others who wanted to ensure that Dr. Feagins had the opportunity to respond. And while Commissioner Williams supported postponing the vote and gathering more information, it's unclear whether or not he supports the resolution itself on eliminating or terminating Dr. Feagins' contract. Commissioner Murphy took a firm and decisive stance during the meeting, making it clear, very clear, that she was against postponing the resolution and strongly favored terminating the superintendent's contract. She said, "We have to deal with this now," and she expressed deep frustration over the challenges facing her district, including the loss of teachers and principals and the lack of proper support for special needs students, which she had personally been impacted by. She shared a personal story about her special needs child being injured at school that lacked special education advisors, and she explained that these critical roles had been reassigned to classrooms due to staffing shortages. Although Commissioner Murphy had initially supported Dr. Feagins, she has admitted that her perspective has shifted and she supports terminating the contract. She emphasized that while the board had been consumed with addressing crises, the true focus, which are the children, was being overlooked. She says, "We have to figure out how we're going to help these teachers and their families because these children are suffering." Commissioner Hewitt Garcia expressed clear frustration and concern over the handling of the meeting, openly stating that she felt embarrassed by the process. She argued that the allegations against Superintendent Feagins did not constitute just cause for termination and firmly stated that she would not support the resolution. Instead, Garcia emphasized that strong management requires providing feedback and professional development opportunities rather than resorting to immediate dismissal or termination. Like Commissioner McKizak, Commissioner Garcia revealed that she had been notified of the meeting at the same time as the public, further underscoring the lack of transparency. Commissioner Garcia did not hold back in her criticism of the board's behavior. She said that we will have to answer to our constituents at the voting booth, and she warned them, emphasizing the potential consequences of their actions. She also pointed out that the board's chaotic handling of the issue was attracting attention from state authorities, stating, "Nashville is watching how we are operating." She also pointed out that the board's chaotic handling of the issue was attracting attention from state authorities, saying that Nashville is watching how we are operating and they will dilute our board. We are not displaying democracy here. And so Commissioner Garcia's remarks reflected disapproval of the venue and the manner in which this discussion was happening, describing it as straight up disrespectful. However, she did clarify that her critique of the process did not mean she dismissed her colleagues' concerns, though she found some of the concerns raised to be incoherent or unclear and confusing. Commissioner Garcia detailed her proactive approach to working with Dr. Feagins, sharing that she meets with the superintendent 3 times weekly in standing meetings. During these discussions, she has provided criticism, specific feedback, and even personal memos outlining school concerns. And she said that, she's seen improvement while also acknowledging that there is still room for growth. And she stressed that progress had been made and firing Dr. Feagins would send the wrong message. And she specifically said, if we do this tonight, we are saying that we're not willing to do the hard work to manage or make improvements. And finally, last but not least, Commissioner Coleman led the charge by reading the resolution, demonstrating her strong support for terminating Superintendent Feagins' contract. However, she struggled to maintain control of the meeting as tensions escalated. When questioned about Dr. Feagins not having an opportunity to defend herself or respond in writing, Commissioner Coleman acknowledged the criticism and responded firmly. I do plan on hearing from Superintendent Feagins. I would not disrespect her like that. And despite being the author of the resolution and her initial push to terminate the contract immediately, Commissioner Coleman showed flexibility by supporting Commissioner McKizak's proposal to send the matter to the next committee meeting to allow for further deliberation. She says that at the January committee meeting, we will allow the superintendent to make her statements in writing, and then at the January business meeting, the board will vote on whether to terminate her. So that was a summary of each board member's perspective. Dr. Feagin also had the opportunity to share her perspective, and she maintained the most composure and professionalism throughout the meeting despite the emotionally charged atmosphere. She addressed each of the allegations against her, providing detailed explanations and context for her decisions. She stated that if she is the barrier, she will leave, and no one can hold her more accountable or to higher standards than she holds herself. She expressed not being allowed to review the resolution before the meeting. She said that the resolution is meritless and baseless, and she also requested the opportunity to present her side in writing. She acknowledged areas where mistakes were made, such as the missed grant deadline and the unauthorized $45,000 donation. She took responsibility for these oversights and explained the steps to rectify them. Superintendent Feagins passionately defended her character and leadership, particularly when responding to allegations of fostering a toxic culture, stating that a teacher's potential harm being made her responsibility is the most insulting and disheartening thing she has ever heard. Superintendent Feagins also detailed her communication efforts, which had been criticized by some board members, explaining that she meets weekly with all but 2 members who have declined consistent meetings. Additionally, she said that she sends out weekly updates, crisis notifications, and a monthly newsletter, stating that she doesn't know what else can be done regarding communication, emphasizing that she has repeatedly asked for feedback. As Dr. Feagins concluded, she expressed gratitude for her team's dedication and resilience, and she said, "If the board does not see fit for me to continue as superintendent, I consider it an honor and a privilege to have done this work." She ended with a pointed remark. She said, "I have nothing to hide. I am confident about what would come out of an external or internal audit. My integrity is above par, and to have it insulted and on the line, she will be letting her attorney take it from here." So that is how Dr. Feagins responded to the resolution brought to her by the board. And so here are the members that supported delaying the decision to terminate Dr. Feagins' contract, allowing for more time to deliberate and provide the superintendent an opportunity to respond in writing. That's Commissioner McKizak, Commissioner Hewitt Garcia, Commissioner Porter, Commissioner Keith Williams, and surprisingly at the last minute, Commissioner Coleman, who initially supported the immediate termination. So that's 5 that agreed to postpone the vote. Then you have 4 members who opposed delaying the decision and favored addressing the resolution immediately, signaling their support for terminating Dr. Feagins' contract. They are Commissioner Love, who said all of 4 words during the meeting, Commissioner McKinney, Commissioner Otey, and Commissioner Murphy. As you can see, the decision reflected a split board, with one group prioritizing additional deliberation and the other group seeking swift action to address their concerns about Dr. Feagins' leadership. Here's a list of questions that I expected answers to during the meeting. 1, what were the board's expectations for Dr. Feagins when she began her tenure on April 1st? 2, has she been meeting expectations? If so, what evidence supports that? If not, what evidence suggests otherwise? 3, what feedback has been given to Dr. Feagins regarding those expectations. 4, how and when was this feedback shared? How often was this feedback provided? 5, what support has been provided to help her meet these expectations? 6, was she given an opportunity to improve, and what was the timeline or structure for that process? These questions are important because they establish a fair and objective framework for evaluating Dr. Feagins' performance. They clarify the board's expectations, they assess whether those expectations are being met with evidence, and examine the feedback, support, and opportunities provided to help Dr. Feagins succeed. By addressing these questions, the board ensures transparency, accountability, and due process, fostering trust in its governance and the fairness of its decisions. It is clear which board members believe Dr. Feagins is meeting expectations and which do not, with some board members expressing the need for more time to decide. However, what remains unclear is the evidence supporting these claims. Much of the meeting's discourse relied heavily on anecdotes, personal stories, or individual accounts that reflect experiences with Dr. Feagins' leadership. These anecdotes or personal stories ranged from endorsements of her leadership style to harsh critiques of her decision-making abilities. And while these stories add the human element to the discussion, they are also subjective and often lack the broader context needed to draw meaningful conclusions. Anecdotes, while valuable for providing insights into personal experiences, can be influenced by personal bias, incomplete information, or limited perspectives. They may represent extremes rather than the norm, potentially leading to skewed interpretations of Dr. Feagins' tenure. For example, hearing a passionate account from a commissioner about a teacher who is experiencing challenges under Dr. Feagins' leadership might suggest systemic issues, but without broader context or supporting data, it's impossible to determine if this is an isolated incident or indicative of a larger trend. In leadership evaluation, evidence refers to data, research, and verifiable facts that provide an objective foundation for understanding the impact of decisions and actions. Metrics like teacher retention rates, student performance data, and fiscal accountability records are examples of evidence that could provide a clearer picture of Dr. Feagins' performance. Unlike anecdotes, evidence offers a more reliable basis for evaluating whether Dr. Feagins is meeting expectations. It allows for a balanced and accurate assessment, fact-checking assumptions, and ensuring that conclusions are grounded in reality. The board's reliance on personal stories during the meeting highlighted the need for a more systemic approach to evaluating Dr. Feagins' leadership. Conducting surveys, focus groups, or gathering objective data on district performance would provide a broader perspective, identifying patterns and validating or debunking anecdotal claims. This approach would ensure that decisions about Dr. Feagins' tenure are informed by both human experiences and hard evidence. It's a both and. And the distinction between anecdote and evidence is crucial for interpreting information and forming opinions about Dr. Feagins' leadership. And while personal accounts can illuminate specific concerns or successes, they should not overshadow evidence-based evaluations. For the board and stakeholders to truly assess whether Dr. Feagins is meeting expectations, they must provide verifiable data and systematic investigations to complement the stories being shared. Only by balancing anecdotal perspectives with evidence can the district arrive at fair and informed decisions about its leadership. As it relates to feedback, I can't help but wonder what was really communicated during those one-on-one meetings between Dr. Feagins and each board member, which were the informal evaluations that were supposed to happen by November 30th. These meetings seemed like the perfect opportunity for board members to give direct, candid feedback about her performance. And I'm wondering, were they constructive conversations offering guidance and support, or were they filled with the same concerns that have now led to the resolution for termination? Strangely, the outcomes of these evaluations weren't discussed during the December 3rd board meeting, even though they had been completed by then. And I'm wondering why these were left off the agenda. I don't think it's required that they share what feedback was shared in the conversations, but I think it makes sense to do so, especially at this point. And so I'm wondering if it was a deliberate decision to keep those discussions private, or was it just an oversight? Either way, the lack of public acknowledgement leaves us guessing about what, if anything, was said to Dr. Feagins about her leadership during those meetings. It makes me wonder, did the feedback she received, again, foreshadow what's happening now? Did the board members express concerns in those private meetings that directly related to the allegations listed in the resolution? Or did something significant happen between December 3rd, the last time the board met publicly, and now that tipped the scales toward termination? The gap between that last public meeting and the current push for termination just feels like a critical piece missing. And if there wasn't any serious feedback during the evaluations, what has changed? Was there a new incident again, or a revelation in the past 2 weeks that escalated the situation? Or is this decision rooted in frustrations that have been brewing or simmering for months? These questions linger because they cut to the heart of how this decision is being made. Were the steps leading to this point transparent and fair, or were they rushed and reactive? I'm holding off on whether I believe Dr. Feagins' contract will ultimately be terminated at the January meeting. However, I do think that if the public hadn't shown up the way they did, we might already be congratulating our new interim superintendent. What I would like to see moving forward is an external investigation or audit to thoroughly examine staff culture, communication, and the other concerns that have been raised. And while I believe the concerns about climate and culture are valid, they must be supported by concrete evidence. I have heard about grievances from people within the district, and if there are indeed many grievances, an investigation is necessary to uncover the facts. One thing is certain though, there is a significant disconnect between how the public perceives Superintendent Feagins and how the board perceives Superintendent Feagins. I might even add central office staff to this dynamic based on the things that I've heard, not grounded in evidence, but still worth mentioning. This disconnect between public perception and how some members of the school board and district office view her leadership is undeniable. For me, the responsibility for addressing the disconnect, bridging the gap, and ensuring that we all have a clear understanding of Dr. Feagins' work and her impact on staff and students lies solely with the board. It is the board's job to ensure that the public is informed, educated, and has clarity about what is happening. Every board member had the opportunity to clearly communicate, supported by evidence, why Dr. Feagins should be terminated. And I did not see that happen. I just didn't. And it's not enough to say things like the public doesn't know what's going on, the public doesn't know the truth, there are things happening behind the scenes the public doesn't know about, or I have a different perspective because I'm on the board. I understand that, but the board has to go beyond those vague and nebulous statements. How are we, the public, supposed to know the truth if no one is going to tell it? The truth ain't gonna tell itself. I mean, it eventually does, but I'm just saying the board has the power and the responsibility to explain their perspective in a way that makes sense, provides transparency, is meaningful, and evidence-based. I'm not saying that the public needs to know every single detail. In fact, I'm not suggesting that at all. However, the board has a responsibility to inform and educate the public about what is happening so that we can better understand their decisions. Because without transparency, without trust, without dialogue, it's difficult to have trust in their governance or confidence in the choices that they are making. I also believe that Dr. Feagins should be provided with the support necessary to meet the board's expectations. She deserves a structured opportunity to improve, complete with a clear timeline and collaboratively designed plan. This process should focus on growth. With each concern, there should be actionable steps to address and resolve the issues in a constructive manner. Additionally, I want the board to undergo proper training. Their role in fostering a collaborative and effective working relationship with the superintendent is just as important as her role in leading the district. There's been talk about recalling the school board members who supported the termination of Dr. Feagins, essentially removing them from their current seats. And I'm not entirely sure how that process works, but personally, I don't think it's necessary. That said, if it's the will of the people, then by all means, exercise your right. The power of community engagement and advocacy lies in holding elected officials accountable. And if this is how people feel compelled to act, then it's their right to do so. That said, I worry about whether the damage done during this process can be repaired. The deep divisions, and I mean deep, and the apparent disdain within the board may continue to hinder progress, potentially affecting the advancement of student outcomes, which is why we should all be here in the first place. So I just think that reconciliation and a renewed focus on shared goals will be essential for moving forward in a healthy and productive way. The board is going to have to, we used to call it at one of my old schools, go below the green line to rebuild trust and to strengthen their relationships with each other, because that's the only way that this is going to get better. And that's all I got for now, y'all. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Remember to subscribe to my newsletter, which is linked in the comments. I will keep you posted. Hopefully, we have some downtime now. I don't know how some of the people involved will be able to have a Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or Happy Holidays, considering the heaviness of all of this. But I am hoping we can come to a resolve really soon. Check out this Memphis Shelby County Schools playlist that I have created so that you can keep learning, keep taking action, and keep reflecting. I love y'all. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.